Hey friends, I'm still working my way through the book and also through the news reports available on this Dr. Kenneth Feldman in Seattle, not to be confused with Dr. Mark Feldman, who we're all more familiar with in the Gypverse. But this one also, this Dr. Feldman, no relation, Dr. Kenneth Feldman, also appears to be a Munchausen by proxy expert who was sued multiple times by multiple families who had children traumatically removed by false Munchausen by proxy allegations stemming from this one doctor. Even the Dr. Mark Feldman that we're all more familiar with from the Gypsy Rose case said that it kind of appeared that this guy was obsessed with Munchausen and seeing it around every corner. So the last article that we read on his situation was from August 2002 from the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, and this one is from 2003. It's from February 2003, and it's not good news. So let's take a look at what they've got to say. Ruling a setback for parents who fought Munchausen allegation. The Washington Supreme Court has denied a petition to review a case involving a family who had a child taken away because a pediatrician at Children's Hospital accused the mother of having Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Munchausen by proxy, also called fictitious disorder, is a controversial condition that implies parents, usually mothers, are either fabricating or inducing illnesses in their children to get attention for themselves. The decision last month, the second time the state's highest court has refused to hear such a case, frustrated families who say their lives were ripped apart by a reckless diagnosis. Child welfare advocates applauded the justices for not tinkering with the immunity afforded doctors who reported suspected child abuse. We are pleased with the outcome and believe it's consistent with prior decisions, children's spokeswoman Susan McKick said. The Seattle hospital declined to comment on whether it had reviewed or changed the way it handles Munchausen allegations after national publicity over a number of controversial cases handled by Dr. Ken Feldman, a pediatrician who is also one of the state's leading child abuse experts. The controversy, investigated by the Seattle Post Intelligencer, did prompt the Children's Administration of that state department, Health, Social, and Health Services to tighten its oversight of the contract under which Feldman and other doctors provide expert consultations on child abuse cases. DSHS now requires quarterly reporting instead of annual of the experts' actions. Ooh, big change. What a win. Ugh. News stories detailing the struggle of parents to regain custody of their children after being suspected of Munchausen but not prosecuted raised a red flag with the agency, said Bruce Thomas, a supervisor in charge of safety and early intervention with the Children's Administration. We're certainly going to be trying to watch future cases more closely, Thomas said. Feldman has been sued by 5 families who claimed he was reckless or negligent in misdiagnosing Munchausen. In each case, State Child Protective Services investigators found no evidence of the alleged abuse. And in all but one case, the one involving pending adoption, the children were returned to their families. However, the families spent tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees defending themselves against the claim and faced the trauma of separation from their children for a period of weeks or up to a year. In each case, Feldman escaped legal penalties or sanctions because he is required by law to report suspected abuse. The State Medical Quality Assurance Commission, which has received a half dozen similar complaints against Feldman, has also closed all of its investigations. This is a huge setback for parents, said Melissa DeJong of Birch Bay, one of the 5 families that have tried to sue Feldman. If the Supreme Court is not willing to listen, then the laws can't be changed. So there's no way for parents to advocate for their children in these situations. The families complain that Feldman, who has built a national reputation as a Munchausen by proxy expert, based in part on the number of cases he has seen, overdiagnoses the disorder. Feldman, who has spoke to a professional group about the need for better recognition of the signs that parents are lying or making things up, has gone on record saying that Munchausen is more common and more damaging than most professionals realize. Other experts, however, dispute whether the mental disorder even exists and say it is used unfairly to punish women who advocate aggressively for children with multiple medical problems or complex medical histories. They also question whether a pediatrician is qualified to make what is essentially a psychiatric diagnosis in a parent. All sides agree that cases in which parents fabricate symptoms do occasionally occur. Last summer, a 19-year-old Yakima mother was charged with assault after secret videotapes caught her apparently trying to smother her child while at Children's Hospital. But some families swept up in Munchausen cases said the allegations are often made without thorough review of a child's medical records, and in most cases without meeting or interviewing the parents. Yeah, we saw Feldman in that last one say that he doesn't want to talk to the mother because they're prone to lie. Anxious parents who exaggerate their children's symptoms to get medical tests done, or those who seek multiple opinions in difficult to diagnose cases, are lumped together with parents who deliberately poison or suffocate their children. Children's has said in the past that all abuse allegations are presented to a committee and carefully reviewed before they are referred to the state. The Supreme Court decision January 9th was a big surprise, said Spokane attorney Dennis Cronin, who represented an Oregon family against Feldman in the state. All we wanted was our day before the jury, Cronin said last week. The plaintiffs, Robert and Christy Yulee, who used to live in Washington, lost a baby they were trying to adopt after Feldman reported them to the CBS. The allegations haunted them during a second attempt to adopt, forcing them to undergo increased scrutiny and supervision before successfully adopting a subsequent child. The family, which has spent tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees, was forced into bankruptcy. We were very sad, said Christy Yule. Our goal was to try and change the system so it didn't happen to other families. In the Yule's case, a lower court had issued a summary judgment in favor of the state, which implied no reasonable person based on the facts would have found in favor of the plaintiff, Cronin said. But an appeal, Washington Court of Appeals Judge Kenneth Cato issued a strongly worded dissent. Dr. Feldman apparently has a penchant for diagnosing or misdiagnosing MSBP, notwithstanding its rarity, and his questioned qualifications to make that diagnosis, Cato wrote. So I'm going to look and see if there are any more recent updates on these families and what happened, and also keep looking into more recent Munchausen by proxy related activities from this Dr. Kenneth Feldman and see what we can turn up because it really kind of sounds like Munchausen by proxy was an internet sensation that a few doctors were obsessed with diagnosing in the early 2000s and late 90s possibly. And if, that was a thing that was being overdiagnosed, over considered, given, over credence to stuff like that, that would have been the perfect breeding ground for that theory to have been developed about Dee Dee. And in order to provide a defense for Gypsy to keep her away from the death penalty, which we know Mike Stanfield said out of his own mouth was their goal, that the death penalty was a real possibility for Gypsy Rose Blanchard, and that coming up with the Munchausen by proxy defense theory mitigated that. It also got her sweet ass plea deal. But yeah, understanding how often overdiagnosed Munchausen by proxy is really terrifying for people with chronic illness and even just, hypochondria. Hypochondriacs, that they're not committing a crime. They often have anxiety about their health. And it seems to me in reading a lot of these warning signs and descriptions, a mother that simply has hypochondriac type anxiety could very easily be mislabeled Munchausen's, a Munchausen's by proxy mom. It's really disturbing. Anyway, friends, let me know what y'all think in the comments. We'll go out with a little palate cleanser, and I hope everyone's having a good day. The new lily bud is up above the water surface, so we're probably gonna have a new flower soon, y'all. There's a new leaf coming up down there too. Coolio and Biggie, they realize I'm out here. They're getting all anxious for their food. Hey, buddies. Hey, buddies. Let's come over here. Really, really wondering if we're gonna have goldfish eggs, y'all. Look how wide Biggie is. Might be Big Etta.